guys, so today I wanted to do a really fun video that I've seen a lot of booktubers do and tier rank all of the series that I've ever read. So I'm including all of the series where I've read at least the first book. I've seen people do it differently, but because some of the series where I've read the first book I'm not planning to continue on, I decided to include them anyways because I do have opinions on them. So I did film this video yesterday. I did a little bit of a different structure, and after I filmed it I realized that it didn't really make sense how I grouped the books, so I decided to do all of the series. Maybe in the future I'll also do all of the standalones that I've ever read. By the way, the windows in my room are open because it's really hot outside. It's like 25 plus degrees or something. It's horrible. So I will sacrifice the sound quality of this video for being alive and having some fresh air. So I'm gonna quickly go over the tier structure that I made. I think Hannah from The Clockwork Reader did a similar thing where she had the god and demigod, and then great, good, average, bad, and trash. I don't know if I'm gonna put many books in trash, maybe a few. And I did god and demigod because there are certain books that are very, very close to god level for me, but they're also not great. They're like, you know, they're the in-between ones, so I decided to do the demigod one. Maybe it's excessive, but this is my tier ranking list, so I do whatever I want. Let's start with one of the most controversial ones, and this is one that can go into trash, and actually it will. Wow, I said I'm not gonna have any trash books, and we're starting off with a trash book. Oh, lots of hair. I've read the first 4 books in the City of Bones series, and they just got worse and worse with every book. And I talked about it before. I don't like the Shadowhunters world and I don't care about it. I'm not gonna continue with the series, and subjectively it's not good. Okay, so next one I have The Fifth Wave. I read it because of the booktube hype, but like many other people I just thought it was okay. I don't think it's necessarily bad, but it's also definitely not good, so I'll just put it in average. Okay, so next up I have A Curse So Dark and Lonely, and for this one, this is a great book. It's not one of my all-time favorites. It's not an absolute masterpiece, you know. It's well written, but it's not anything extraordinary. But I still enjoyed it so much, so it goes to great tier. Okay, so next we have Darker Shade Trilogy. See, this one is the one where I'm like, god or demigod, god or demigod. This is the hardest one for me to classify. It's a great trilogy and a lot of people love it, and for good reason. The world and the characters are so well fleshed out, and yeah, it's just really good. But I think I'm gonna put it into demigod just because it's not on the same level as some other books that I'm gonna put into god level, but it's so close. This is why I made this tier, because if I only had great and god, I would put it into god, but I feel like it just, you know, just doesn't have that little thing. Next one is An Ember in the Ashes, one of the favorites. And if you've seen my BookTube All-Star videos, you've seen me talk about it. I've read the first 2 books and the first part of the 3rd book, and it just got worse and worse for me. So I love the first book so much. Like, the first book is definitely demigod level for me if we were just talking about the first one, but taking the average, I'm just gonna put it into good, because if the series went into a completely different direction it would have easily been demigod or potentially god level, but because it didn't go in the direction that I would have preferred it to go, it's just not for me. Okay, so next we have Aristotle and Dante Discovered the Secrets of the Universe, and I didn't know this, but apparently there's gonna be a sequel to it. That's why it's on this list. This book, I mean, it's acclaimed for a good reason, and I think I'm gonna put it into great because it's a great book. It's well written. I think my enjoyment of it was on a good level, but objectively speaking, it's well written and the message is very important. So Article 5. If you remember the dystopian craze, maybe you've picked this one up many years ago, but this is one that's very nostalgic to me because I actually really enjoyed reading this one, and I have reread it once back when I was like middle school, high school. I definitely enjoyed it more than The Fifth Wave. Yeah, I'll put it in average just because while I don't like where An Ember in the Ashes goes, I do think it's a much better quality story than Article 5. Article 5 was just another dystopian. It's average. Okay, Carry On by Rainbow Rowell. So if you don't know, Carry On is kind of like a spin-off from Fangirl, which is one of my absolute favorite books of all time. But this one, when I went into it, I was so excited, but I was disappointed. I think Rainbow Rowell is just not a fantasy writer. She's definitely a contemporary writer, and this book is supposed to be fantasy, but it reads like contemporary. The magic system and the world are just not well flushed out. I only enjoyed it for the characters, and even then, they're not my all-time favorite characters. They're good. So I'll just put it in good. Okay, so next up we have City of Ghosts by Victoria Schwab, and this one goes into great for me. It's a great middle grade that I didn't think I would enjoy as much as I do, but it's amazing, well written, and for a middle grade, very enjoyable. Okay, next we have Divergent, and I know a lot of people put this into trash or bad tier, but I love Divergent so much. I actually reread the first book probably like 5 times. I'm not joking, my paperback copy was worn out to bits. The second and third book, I think I didn't hate as much as other people do, so overall, I do have a soft spot for this trilogy in my heart. I will put it into good because, objectively speaking, it's not as good as the great tier books on my list. The way the story went, obviously, it did get a little worse, and there were plot holes. If the first book was its own book, would be great tier for sure. Okay, so next we have The Gentleman's Guide to Vice and Virtue. I've read this book and I started reading The Lady's Guide to Petticoats and Piracy, but I didn't continue, not because it was bad or anything, I was just not feeling it. This is an interesting book because it is enjoyable. I did like it when I read it. It was not anything special, so it's just gonna go into good tier. So next we have Harry Potter, and it automatically goes into god tier for me. I don't think I need to explain the reasoning. A lot of people will agree with me. Some people don't like Harry Potter as much because of J.K. Rowling and just her behavior on social media lately and what she's been saying about various topics. Not too familiar with everything that she's done. I've seen some things, but I distance myself. Not all of the books that I love have the authors that I absolutely love too. There is going to be another example of this later and I can touch upon that, but the story has a very special place in my heart, and even though I only read it when I was 17 after I've seen all of the movies, I still loved it so much, and it's just, you know, nothing can rival Harry Potter. Okay, so next we have Legend by Mary Lou. I think I read the first 2 books and half of the third book, and I just stopped caring about it. It was average. Oh, I feel like all of these dystopian ones, they're just going into the average pile for me because all of them were just they were all written around the same time and they were like all one and the same. Okay, so I have Love, Life and the List by Katie West, and this one I read last year. I just felt like reading something very fluffy and cute, which I haven't felt like reading in a while since then. I really enjoyed it when I read it. I'm gonna put it into good tier because objectively it's not like a masterpiece, it's not like a super well written book, but it was so enjoyable, so it's definitely good tier for me. Oh, okay, so next is The Raven Boys by Maggie Stiefvater, and that's another one that's automatically god tier for me. One of my absolute favorite series ever, and this is the one that I meant where I said I don't particularly love the author even though I love the books. Maggie Stiefvater, she's had some conflicts and whatnot on social media. She had a conflict with Halsey where she didn't behave like a mature adult. I still follow her, not because I think she's a great person, but because I think she's a great author. You know, I'm not behind the Maggie Stiefvater cult, I'm behind the Raven Boys cult. I love the story and I just kind of try to dissociate the author from the book. Yeah, one of my absolute favorites. Okay, next up we have The Unbecoming of Mara Dyer, and this one is kind of hard because I did reread it once or twice, but this was before I started reading any objectively good books and I don't know, maybe this one should go into bad tier or maybe average tier. I feel like my bad tier is just very sad and empty and I should start filling it up, but maybe I shouldn't. You know, I enjoyed it when I read it, but it didn't make much sense. I was like, what? I think I read the second book too, but I'm not sure. But do I think it's worse than Legend or The Fifth Wave? I don't really think it's worse, so I'll just put it in average. Okay, The Maze Runner. So the thing with The Maze Runner, and I think a lot of people will agree with me, I love the movie movie adaptations so much more than I like the books. The books are just not that well written. I appreciate what they did in terms of the story and the characters because they did inspire the movies and the movies are wonderful. I don't want to base how good the book is compared to the movie, but I can't really help kind of sticking those two next to each other in my mind. This is hard. Yeah, I think I'll put it into bad. I think it's gonna go into bad. Sorry. Okay, next up we have Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo, and that one goes into great tier for me. It's a great book, another amazing book by Leigh Bardugo. If you know me, you know I love Six of Crows, which I'm gonna rank soon enough. This one, not Six of Crows level, but I still love it, and I think it has potential to go even higher up in the future. But this one is one of the fewer adult fantasy books that I've read, and I definitely really enjoyed how dark it was. So love Leigh Bardugo's dark stuff. Okay, so next up we have one of the more recent reads, and that is One of Us is Lying by Karen McManus. And I loved this book. I started off not really liking it as much. I was even messaging my friend about the part where there was a lot of sports talk, and I was like, I don't care about this, can we just skip the sports talk? It was only like 1 or 2 pages, it wasn't even that long, but it read like 100. I would rather read a math textbook. Some of the characters annoyed me so much, I was like, oh, they're so cliche, blah blah blah. But then they grew over the course of the story, and the character that I hated the most, I ended up loving the most by the end of the book. And just because of that character's story, this book deserves to be in great tier for me. Next one, we have Pride and Prejudice and Zombies, which is based on the original Pride and Prejudice. And yes, it's part of a series, that's why it's on this list. But this one goes into trash automatically. Oh my god, that book. I don't even think I gave it a low enough rating. I read it a couple years ago, so my rating was not as precise as it is now. But I was like, oh, maybe 4 stars, but then I was like, no, like 3 stars. But now I'm just like, oh boy, this book, it just did Jane Austen so dirty, and I am so sad what this book did to it. A lot of people like the humor, and I'm just like, no, it was like a perverted take on an amazing classic. It's not well done, and I love zombies. And I love Pride and Prejudice. You'd think, take those 2 components, put them together, and this is the perfect book for me. But no, it disappointed me, and I am so sad about it. It deserves its place in the trash pile. Ooh, this selection. So the selection I'm gonna put into bad, because I think it's not as good as the books in an average pile. I just think it's a very fluffy, empty book I read when I was in the mood for it, and I even thought about continuing it, but now that I think about it, that book was just so empty and it gave me nothing. It doesn't deserve any higher place than bad. Serpent and Dove. Serpent and Dove will go into good tier for me. I think when I first made this video, I put it in the great tier because I compared Serpent and Dove to A Curse So Dark and Lonely. But now that I think about it, I think Serpent and Dove, just because of all the plot holes and kind of illogical things that happened in it, was definitely not as well executed as A Curse So Dark and Lonely, and they're 2 completely different books by different authors, but in my mind they just kind of have a similar feel for them. It makes sense in my head. It wasn't as well executed as A Curse So Dark and Lonely, hence it's only good. But I did enjoy it, and I am gonna continue on with this series. Maybe it will get better. I understand why people hate this series. It's objectively not that well executed, but I do enjoy it, so shatter me of a boy. Okay, this book is one that was written so long ago that I just think it's irrelevant. I read it pretty recently, or I tried reading it. I read the first one and started the second one, and then I was like, I don't care about this at all. Objectively, it's probably not that bad. A lot of people don't like the writing style. I didn't hate it. I also didn't love it. I think it's outdated. This is hard, but I'm gonna be decisive. I'm gonna put it into bad. Jack the Ripper automatically goes into great tier for me. I love this series. I'm reading the second one, and it's just so enjoyable. A lot of people say that it's pretending to be feminist, but it's not. But I don't agree with that. I've already talked about this before in my April wrap-up. I might maybe do like a conclusion review of the whole series once I finish it. It's obviously not a perfect book, but it's so enjoyable for me that it deserves to be in great tier. I think great tier is books that are objectively not as well executed as those in demigod or god tier, but they're super highly enjoyable for me. That's basically the consensus for all of these books. Next is Six of Crows, and if you don't know where it's going, then you don't know me. I guess if you put a crow or a raven in the title or just a bird on the cover, it will go into god tier for me automatically. Apparently that's how it works. Spiderwick, oh my god. So I actually forgot about this one. I just recently added it to my Goodreads because it popped up and I was like, oh my god, I read Spiderwick when I was like 10 or 11, and oh my god, did I love this series. I loved it so much. It was amazing. See, I read it over a decade ago, so I can't speak to how quality it is, and because it's middle grade, it's also kind of hard to judge, but it was so fun, so enjoyable. I even had a companion like interactive big book to it because I absolutely loved it. It goes into great tier. It could be demigod tier, but as a child I would have probably put it in god tier. So yeah. Next we have The Cruel Prince, and this one goes straight into god tier for me. You can hate on me. I know there's a lot of problems with this book. A lot of people put it in like trash tier. A lot of people put it in god tier. Despite all of its flaws, I absolutely love it. I love the characters. I wanna reread this series so much already, even though I just read it 2 or 3 months ago. I love it so much. I am overlooking all of the flaws because the enjoyment for this book was through the roof. I loved it so much. So god tier for me, for sure. The Last Magician by Lisa Maxwell. I think it goes in great tier. I really enjoyed that book, but I think it could have been executed a little bit better. It has so much potential considering the plot of the book and the magical abilities that the characters have to be even better, but I think the execution of it is just lacking a little bit, but I still enjoy it so much, and I am looking forward to reading the final book, I believe, in the series once it comes out later this year. The Merciful Crow. I kind of want to put it into demigod, but this is hard because I like The Merciful Crow more than I like The Last Magician, more than I like A Curse So Dark and Lonely. You know what? I'll put it into demigod tier. I think this book is very underrated. I did see quite a few criticisms about this one as well on Goodreads reviews. If you ever want me to talk about this book in depth and maybe like go through some of the negative reviews and respond to those, let me know. But I love this book so much. Again, it has crow in the title, so obviously it has to be very high up. That's just how books work for me. My back is killing me. Next we have all of the Percy Jackson series that I've read or started. So the first one is the original Percy Jackson, and that one goes into demigod for me. Very fitting, am I right? This one is a great series. I didn't read it as a child, I read it as a teenager, and I think just because I don't have that nostalgia value attached to it, it's not as high up as it is for many other people, and I also do think that it's a little inferior to god tier books and like Harry Potter, because I think those two are the most compared, but I still love it so much. It's amazing. And The Lost Hero, I'm also gonna put into demigod tier because those two are very close. I think I still like Percy Jackson a tiny little bit more, but some aspects of the second series, I love Leo in it. Leo is my baby. He's like my favorite character ever. I do like him more than Percy. Just for Leo, I am willing to put Heroes of Olympus into demigod because it's amazing. Some of the new characters I love so much. So okay, and now the Trials of Apollo. Oh my god. So with the Trials of Apollo, it's a completely different picture. I barely managed to finish the first book. I didn't start any of the next books because I was so disappointed with this. It was so hard to read. The humor wasn't on the same level as the other two series, and it was just so sad, and a lot of the characters that I love weren't present, at least in the first book. It was so hard to read. I didn't care about the characters that we followed in this one, and because I really need to care for the characters to like book, this one's gonna go into average. Let me know if you've read the whole series and if it gets better, because I really want to finish all of the Rick Riordan, Percy Jackson related books. The Trials of Apollo were already really hard to get through, and I just don't want to waste my time and many hours trying to get through books that I'm ultimately not gonna enjoy. So The Hunger Games, you may or may not agree, but this goes into god tier. This is a new classic. It's an amazing book. It's objectively very well written. It's not just because when it was written, it will stand the test of time in my opinion. I'm rereading The Hunger Games right now, and it's just as good as it was before, and having read many of the books that have come out since, I still think it stands up. Hunger Games doesn't get outdated. It's still really good, and the characters and the story are so rich, and you can't say that it's poorly executed or it's just because of the time when it came out was the dystopian craze. No, it was very well written, and it will be God tier for me. I don't know why I'm defending Hunger Games. I think Hunger Games can defend themselves, you know? The next one is Three Men in a Boat. I bet not many of you know this story. I read it in Russian. It's a really fun book. It goes into great tier. I didn't know it was a series. There's 2 books in this, and it's very old. It's written by Jerome. It's a really fun book. I don't think I've read a funnier book than this one. Yeah, I'm putting it in a great tier. I don't remember anything specific that happened in that book. I just remember they're on a boat, and it's really funny. The next one is The Kiss of Deception, and this one, I'm gonna put it into demigod tier. You know, when I first went into this series, I was like, oh, the title is so cringy, and I know there are more cringy titles, but because I'm not like a very romance-based reader, I was just like, oh, it's gonna be like romance tropes and whatnot. And oh my god, was I wrong. This book is so heavily political and complex and has very interesting, intricate characters and world building. It was amazing. I wouldn't say it's romance centered. The title, I think, is pretty deceptive. See what I did there? I'm sorry. It's an amazing book. I enjoyed it so much. I will reread it at some point. You know, don't let the title deceive you. It's a great book. The Knife of Never Letting Go. One of my absolute favorite series of all time. I read all of them. See, this one is kind of hard because I want to put it into God. I think I'll put it into demigod tier. I just think it doesn't stand up to the God books by this much. It wasn't perfect, but it was nearly perfect, and it has one of the most interesting premises ever. Basically, this is a world where there are no more women and everyone can hear everybody's thoughts. Yeah, if that doesn't sound interesting, I don't know what will. I read that and I was like, I am sold, give me the books. I bought all of them, I read all of them, I loved all of them. They're amazing. To All the Boys I've Loved Before by Jenny Han. I read the whole trilogy and it was fun while I read it. No, it's a cute book. Contemporaries are really hard to judge for me. I just don't enjoy them as much as fantasy, because in fantasy there is so much more work involved in trying to build characters like with magical powers, the world that is completely different from ours, magic systems, and I just appreciate that so much more as a reader. It ignites my imagination, while contemporaries are just like, this could happen in real life, and I'm trying to escape real life by reading books. So automatically I think if any contemporary ever makes it past like good, that's gonna be an accomplishment. I guess there is a couple contemporaries that could make it past that, but they're not in this video, so this one's average. Truly Devious. Ooh, Truly Devious is great. I definitely see the problem with it, because it shouldn't have been 3 books, it should have been 1 book. It was broken apart and each book ended in a cliffhanger, except for the last one, and that was super frustrating. I hate when books end on cliffhangers. I really like clean endings, but I do love this series. Despite all of its flaws, I love it. I especially love the moose. Every time the moose comes up, I'm on the floor. Yeah, if you read the book, you know. Yeah, this is a great book. I love the riddles and everything. Oh, Vampire Academy. This was something that wasn't on my Goodreads, but I did read the first 4 books, and that was over a decade ago when I was like a teeny weeny 10, 11-year-old. I read the first 4 books. I really enjoyed them when I read them, so I'm not gonna put them in trash or bad by any means. Oh, is this gonna be really bad if I put them in good? Are people gonna hate me? Yeah, you know what? I'm gonna put it in good. Oh my god, I'm putting it on the same level as Ember in the Ashes. Please don't come at me. Yeah, I really enjoyed it when I read it, and I was like a preteen, so, you know, my preteen brain was just eating it up. I didn't finish the series, I'm pretty sure. I may have, but I don't even remember. I've always thought there were 4 books in the series. Because I thought there were 4, I'm assuming that I only read 4 when they came out, but I really enjoyed it when I read it. Vicious by V. Schwab. Oh my god, this one's a little difficult. I'm not sure if I should put it in great or demigod. I really need to reread this book. I feel like I'm gonna like it so much more the second time around, and I do want to check out the sequel. You know what? I'll put it in demigod. My demigod is like so overpopulated. I love so many books. I'm always very thorough in picking books that I'm gonna read. That's why most books that I read are like 4 or 5 stars. I just read a lot of good books, and I think I'm pretty easy to please as a reader. A lot of books I just enjoy a lot. So, okay, next, What If It's Us? I think it's gonna be average. It really has a similar vibe to All the Boys I've Loved Before for me. I read it, it was cute, not memorable. I even enjoyed To All the Boys I've Loved Before more than this one. I think I gave it a pretty high rating when I first read it, but looking back, I'm just like, didn't love how it ended. There is a continuation apparently, which I'm probably not gonna read just because I don't want to spend my time. Okay, and the very last book that I'm going to rank is When Dimple Met Rishi, which is a very popular contemporary book that has many companion books, I guess, in the series, and I think I enjoyed it enough when I read it, but looking back, it's a book that definitely centers around romance, but I wish it didn't have it at all. I don't want to spoil it, but I just didn't like how the romance progressed. It was definitely kind of like out of nowhere. They didn't care about each other. She was like, I am all about coding, I don't want to think about boys, blah blah blah, and then boom, and she's like, googly eyes. That makes no sense. So, you know, I think I'm gonna put it in bad. If you disagree, you are entitled to your opinion, but to me, I'm just not interested in any more books in that companion series because that frustrates me. The whole romantic plot is the center of the book, and that's something that I didn't enjoy at all. Not gonna continue. I don't want to see any more of the same thing. I'm not interested. I'm sorry. If you love those books, I'm happy for you. I don't. Okay, so that's my ranking. The curve is pretty even, which is nice. I'm happy that most books are in grade tier or above. That's great. It's really hot. I think my brain is melting. I really hope you enjoyed this video, and please remember, if I don't like any books that you like, or if you don't like any books that I like, that is completely fine. Everyone has their own opinions. If you disagree with me, please let me know, because I love when people have a different perspective from me. I actually don't see why people would be angry about people having different opinions, because I'm like, I disagree, but I love argumentative discussion. I'm an Aries, so I'm very much like, give me like a good argument, give me a debate to participate in. So I hope you enjoy watching these videos as much as I like making them, and in the future I'm probably gonna make more of these. Please stay safe and have a nice rest of your day. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye!